Millcreek Township General Court meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, do we have any public comment on any of the agenda items? No public comment? Okay. If not, next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from November 14th. Do we have a motion to approve those as prepared?
I'll make a motion to approve.
So moved by Ms. Mitchell.
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Clear. Any discussions, questions, changes? If not, we'll go ahead and vote. Mr. Roulette? Yes. Mr. Bach?
Yes.
Ms. Clear?
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell?
Yes.
I vote yes. So those minutes for November 14th are approved. Moving on to the financial report and I guess the approval of bills. I guess we can do those all at once. Mr. Zashewski.
Okay, there wasn't, once again, we're sort of in maintenance mode, so there isn't a whole lot of activity in the current month. There's about $5 worth of interest on the account. There were legal fees of $11,919 paid. $317 in advertising. I think that was a special meeting. The others, professional services. Do you remember what that is? Oh, that's right. That was the survey of the properties.
Oh, yes. Sorry.
And then property maintenance expense was utility bills. And let's see this. Oh, the other one was insurance for the upcoming year. It spans from November to November. So that was it for all the activity. There was no capital purchases, and that's where we stand. And then on the bills, they reflect largely the same expenses because they come in at random times throughout the month.
Everything's standard, no issue. Okay, do we have a motion to approve the bills as presented?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Roulette.
Second.
Second by Ms. Clear. Any questions? It's all pretty standard, not much happened last month. All those in favor? Mr. Roulette? Yes. Mr. Bach?
Yes.
Ms. Clear?
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell?
Yes.
I vote yes. Okay, so those bills are all approved. Thank you. Okay, moving on to a discussion on the 2024 budget. Turn over to Mr. Walden.
Yes, thank you. Each of you should have in front of you a copy of the draft 2024 budget projected out then through 2028. I worked with Mark to try and come up with some figures that we felt were reasonable. Obviously, we did have an entire year's worth of operating expenses in order to kind of use to project. Tried to do the best that we could. Again, obviously, this year was probably a little bit of an outlier from other years because there was a lot of activity with the purchases and things. So hopefully we've got a budget that is conservative and a little more than we need, but we didn't want to go too low, and then we can adjust in future years once we get a more normal operating year under our belt. Just running down the list really quickly, we are proposing to fund this year's operating budget using the ending fund balance from 2023. So no further transfers would be requested from the township in 2024 to operate. We show legal fees estimated at $100,000, administrative service charge just over $75,000, some minor printing and advertising, $1,500 and $1,000 each. I did include $200,000 this year for professional services. That would include the $100,000 not to exceed contract that we have with Altair, so potentially that would not all be used. That also includes funds for contracts we have with Altair and Ingalls Planning, and then additional funds to be used for architectural services, for example, for review of the grasshopper so that we have money in there to do those things as needed. Property maintenance expense is mainly the electricity for the Bel Air, but also includes property maintenance, the actual grounds maintenance funds to take care of those as well. Insurance, we had a pretty good handle on based on the insurance bills that we've received, and then the real estate transfer, or the real estate taxes represent the pilot that we've reached with the school district. So all in all, it proposes $461,520 worth of spending on a $464,881 fund balance, leaving us with a relatively tight $3,611 after this year. You will notice that it does not propose on the second sheet or back sheet, depending on which copy you have, does not propose any capital spending for this year because trying to live within the means of what we had already. If there were to be any need for any additional capital projects, requests would have to then be made to the township for additional funds. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Mark, I don't know if you have anything more to add or...
No, but if something were to come up and we needed capital funds, you'd have to amend your budget, and the township would have to amend its budget as well, because we don't have any transfers planned for 2024 as well.
So I guess that was my question when I looked through this. Is this the way we want to do it, or are the supervisors intending to allocate additional funds for operating expenses and/or for capital expenditures? Because I mean, all of our money obviously comes from the general fund money comes from the supervisors. So I didn't know, are we going to? I don't know if this is just a discussion or whatever. I don't know if we want to approve this today, but I'm just wondering. It leaves us with a very low fund balance. The authority with a very low fund balance. So every time if you go over, we have to do exactly what Mr. Zaszewski says and amend both budgets. So I didn't know procedurally if that makes the most sense, or if it makes sense to consider maybe what should be allocated from the township to the general authority on an operating basis, and also if we anticipate if there's any capital expenditures that are going to occur 2024. So those are my questions, I guess.
And I do, Mr. Shaw, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe that you necessarily have to adopt a budget today. It could be adopted in January if you felt further discussion was warranted.
Does anybody have an opinion on that, or?
I'd like to see us stay within the projected budget the way it's presented right now. And then if we need to pivot, then we do. But really would like to live within that dollar amount.
Any other comments?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We did discuss some of this, I think, and I think at this point we are looking to stay within this budget and look forward, what comes down from Mr. Waldinger from the different, what might happen this year. I feel like we're probably at a point where this is our first real operating budget year. Because of last year, so see how this goes, and we'll work from there.
Okay, so if it has to be amended during the year, that's how we supervisors choose to do it.
Yes.
What about in terms of the demolition revenue and expenses? Is that through the township, or is it? Because that's not on here.
Well, that's actually just in and out,
Right.
because the county's land bank's covering the entire cost.
Right.
So we'll park the expense on the balance sheet as unreimbursed expense, and then when we get reimbursed from the county, it wipes it out.
Right. No, I know. I know it's an in and out, but I didn't know if you wanted to show it on the general authority budget, coming in, going out. No.
Sure.
I mean, I'll defer that to
Okay.
Mark, if you're fine with how it's set up.
It could be amended though before our next meeting in January to show the amount that's coming in, maybe because we're expecting 250 to come in from the land bank last year, and then 250 to come in next year, or sorry, 2023, 250 from 2024.
Are the dollars coming from, or to the authority, or to the
Yes.
federal authority, or to the, so we probably should show it. I mean,
Yeah.
show going in and going out, even though it's a net zero, I understand.
I think, if I could, I think you can approve the budget today, subject to that addition,
Okay.
so that we don't have to go into January without a budget. I think it makes more sense to have that in place at the end of the year. And as Mark indicated, it is simply a, we get the bills in,
Right, I understood, yeah.
we may pay the bills and then submit it, or we may be able to just say, here's the bill, can you, reimburse us for the bill? I don't think we'll use the whole second year of 250 based on the numbers that we have. And that's obviously reserved for, subsequent demolition, potentially of some of the Bel Air property. So that'll, in terms of projects for next year, that'll be the project. We'll, in addition to the completion of the demolition of the 3 properties that are currently under contract, we'd also be looking at, the Bel Air and what opportunities are there.
Okay, sounds good. Any other questions on the budget or any comments? So somebody would like to make a motion to approve as is, or again, we can wait until January, it's up to the board.
I would make a motion to approve the budget with the addition of the $250,000 from the land bank grant that we will be receiving, or did receive, will be receiving, I should say.
Okay. A motion made by Ms. Clear. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Second by Ms. Mitchell. Any other additional questions or discussion? If not, we'll take a vote. Mr. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Bach?
Yes.
Ms. Clear?
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well, so the budget with the amended terms is approved. Thank you. Okay, moving on to communications. Back to Mr. Waldinger, Executive Director, report.
Thank you. Just a few things to report. Like Mark mentioned earlier, we did have the survey of the properties complete. I can share a copy of that with each of the board members, but we've got that work done. As far as other work in progress, the asbestos removal has been complete. We did receive the final disposition reports from Waste Management. We're just waiting on the final reports from A-Mark Environmental, along with the invoices, which they anticipate to have to us by the end of this year. As far as the demolition work itself, the township permits are prepared to be issued. It's my understanding that they're going to pull those permits by the end of this week. We are still waiting on final approval for our NPDES, our erosion sedimentation permitting. That is really the big, I won't say sticking point, but that's the major thing we're waiting for that's outside of our control. As soon as we get that permit, we will hold a pre-construction meeting with the contractor, and then they can begin demolition whenever it suits their needs. So that's all I have to report today. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to do.
Any questions? Ms. Clear?
Apologize. So demolition, our contract with, is between December 1st and May 15th, is that correct?
The completion date is May 15th, yes.
Okay.
They can begin as soon as, everything is cleared for them to begin.
Okay, great, okay. Do we have a date in mind yet? Have they?
No, not really. Like I said, we're still waiting on that permit from DEP, and then
Okay.
as soon as we receive it, they are supposed to give us a demolition schedule at that pre-demolition meeting.
Okay.
Pre-work meeting, but until that's held, I won't have any further
Okay.
information.
So the for a goal date. I've got to make sure, put it in my calendar.
Any other questions or comments? If not, okay, thank you, Mr. Waldinger. Move on to Mr. Shaw, Solicitor's Report.
Yeah, I would just add in terms of the DEP permit, it's a pretty standard permit, so we don't expect any significant delays associated with that. It's just a matter of them finalizing their review and issuing it. It's a pretty rudimentary, permit from their perspective, without, there's no complex issues that should hold that up. So hopefully we'll get that soon. In terms of other matters, nothing really to report at this point in time.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, on to agenda item number 9. Any citizens to be heard? Yeah. Come on up. Come on up.
Questions? Dennis speaking. I know you're focused on this, but the township in the past has tore down, and I'm a big believer, Kim might appreciate this, in learning from history as a teacher. So history has taught me Millcreek has tore down lots of structures and nothing's ever come to fruition. Good example is the corner of Washington and West Ramsey. That house was tore down, it's still sitting empty. As a matter of fact, now people are parking there. I don't know who. You have by the Ugly Tuna, that motel that was next to the cemetery, has been torn down, still sitting empty. There's several other properties now. I know you're focused on 8th Street. Will you guys somehow market them, approach people to buy them? Are they going to become part of the Parks and Rec? I mean, are they just going to continue to sit empty? You keep hearing, you need to generate revenue. You're running out of money unless you plan on raising taxes a lot. On top of the county raising taxes and all these other things, you're going to have a lot of ticked off people. I mean, I've said this in the past. Dreaming is cheap. Paying for it's another story. I'm hoping that you can walk, talk, and chew gum and do multiple things. But I'd like to know, history. I'm leery of you guys tearing down and destroying and doubling all this property on 8th Street, and it's going to just sit there.
Appreciate that. And don't forget, this is the general authority. This is not the township. So, we do not own.
But is the authority going to help do something with that? Because in the past, it's out. Is the authority able to do stuff with those? Or are you only going to do 8th Street? Is your goal to buy property and turn it over and create revenue? I've come to a lot of these meetings, and I don't know what you guys are up to.
Long term, anything I think could potentially be possible. Right now, obviously, it is focused on 8th Street, and I don't want to get too much into the specific points that you made, but the two that you mentioned are both privately owned lots. We did at least have a hand in them being demolished as far as through code enforcement because they were deteriorating the structures, having the owners tear them down. But they are privately owned, and it would presumably be being marketed by the owners for development. I know, for example, the hotel, we've had conversations with the owner. He's looked at several different concepts, but the configuration of that lot and the way it's set up, he's had some issues with getting something in there. But in general, though, like I said, I don't want to get too much into those details. In general, potentially in the future, right now, obviously, there's a lot on the plate with what we have, but the authority would have the ability to help and assist with that down.
I mean, the authority, hopefully, like right now, you're focused on 8th Street, but is it going to continue repetitively? Like I've asked in the past, like Kmart,
No, it will not be indefinite. We are trying to get things done as quickly as we can. We'd love to see things built on them and get them back on the tax rolls. We could do that tomorrow.
Hopefully, sometime in the future.
It doesn't necessarily have to dissolve, but maybe it has less to do, or turns its interest to a different play. That would be up to the members of the authority.
I can't be the only person out there who's wondering. Unfortunately, a lot of people are afraid to ask questions and don't want to look like they don't know, but I'm not afraid of this. Not pretending I think is a bigger...
No, and I think that we appreciate your comments, and we understand the direction of what you're asking us.
Yeah, because lots of people are frustrated, and they only see... I think a lot of times the government forgets citizens don't know because you're not engaged. When a 30-second news soundbite doesn't cut it, And even I have come to a lot of these and admittedly am confused by what you guys are trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I mean, I'd encourage you to go to our website, review the Gateway District Plan, and I mean, there's a slew of information out there, and more is coming, so.
Right, and there again, a lot of it's inside, a lot of, technical jargon and stuff can be overwhelming to a lot, so I just appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
If I could, Dennis, in terms of the code enforcement, just so you kind of know the background of that, the township, makes all efforts it can to try to get the property owner to bring their building into compliance. Unfortunately, we are confronted sometimes with a situation where the building owner either is unwilling or unable to do so. The property violates the code to the point where the property has to be condemned. And if that's the case and they're unwilling to resolve the reasons why it's condemned, the township then will begin action to try to force the condemnation so that, because the building as is can't be used at all. And in many cases, it's in a situation where no matter almost what you do to it, it can't be used. And so we go through that process. We oftentimes may ultimately have to go to the court to get an order permitting us to go ahead and demolish it. And what happens then is the township gets a tax lien on the property to cover the cost of that demolition, but we can't take the property. The property's still in the name of the party that owns it, and they decide what they want to do with it or how they want to deal with it. Sometimes when properties are in residential areas, it's a little more challenging because frankly, the only thing that can go in there is another house. So can you market it to somebody who wants to build a house there? And in commercial areas, again, it's the owner's got to decide what they want to do with it or how they can maybe rebuild or get someone, entice somebody to build there. And sometimes these aren't in great areas where they're difficult lots, and that may explain why they're in the condition they're in. But just so you know, background from that perspective.
Well, I realize a lot of Millcreek, was unfortunately not planned and kind of, in the early days, sprawled, and, you get those weird lots and a lot, and like that motel next to the cemetery. I mean, that's the weirdest, the obvious would be the cemetery, but they don't want to buy it. Who wants to build right next to a cemetery? It wasn't there 100-some years ago. Or you end up with like in my neighborhood, you have a trailer next to a house built in the 70s. Well, new ordinance codes, you couldn't put a trailer there. But, you end up, but you never want to see structures tore down just to tear them down, because it is much harder to replace them unless they're not maintained. I understand that, but I grew up, and I've said this in the past, on an old, very old schoolhouse, so I do appreciate older properties. Once it's gone, it's gone. But in the same sense, I also realize sometimes it needs to go. But I just wondering about, what the goals, like, admittedly, just buy.
We understand it. We appreciate it. We appreciate your interest too, so thank you. Okay, any other citizens' comments? Mr. Murrow?
Obviously, you know who I am. So John Murrow, former Millcreek supervisor, 603 Montpelier Avenue. Hello, folks. Just a quick question. I don't want to belabor this, and we hear me say that a lot, but I think one of the concerns that residents may have, residents of Millcreek Township, is how this corner is going to look when the buildings are demolished. And we already know what they look like now, and it's really not desirable. Thank God it's not tourist season right now. So I'm going to make an assumption that the demolition period is between, December 1st and May 1st? Is that correct?
May 15th.
May 15th.
May 15th, so hopefully that'll be expedited even quicker. But my question has to do with the type of demolition it is. Now, as you know, I'm a former code official, former building inspector. Is it going to be a grade level demolition?
Yes.
Not taking out footers or anything?
Well, they are, no, I'm sorry. I misunderstood your question. No, they are going to remove all the foundation walls to a depth of 42 inches.
Okay, yeah.
Break up any basement floors that exist
Okay.
before backfilling.
Okay.
They'll have to haul everything that they take off-site, but there may still be a few Corner walls.
So they're gonna backfill, they're gonna use a compactor on that, or a
Yes.
jumping jack to pound that down, so they can, because that will affect the property sale, I believe, because how is it gonna be built on?
Right.
And then the asphalt around there, like for example, at the sandbar, you're
Yeah.
gonna dig up all that asphalt too?
And I'm sorry, that was the question I thought you had asked, and that's what I was going to answer. Yes, all of the asphalt will
Okay.
be removed and it'll be graded and seeded.
Great, okay, that was the question, grass, so you'll have some grass, so it will be something that will be at least somewhat desirable to look at there. Okay, I mean, as far as the issue of purchase, that's all done, I'm not gonna even talk about that, but what this is gonna look like for any visitors that we have coming into Presque Isle, even ourselves, we go up and down those streets too, so. That's what I just needed to know, is that I didn't get a chance to see the contract specs, for the demolition there, so. That's all I have. So I think that will help, hopefully calm some of the concerns, hopefully, but you never know. So, thank you. Thanks for answering the question.
Thank you, appreciate it. Okay, any other comments? No. Okay, let's move on. What I'd like to do is adjourn the meeting and adjourn into executive session to discuss a real estate matter. So if I can get a motion to adjourn the regular meeting and move into executive session, please. Seconded by Mr. Roulette. Second by Ms. Mitchell. Any issues with that or problems? If not, we'll go ahead and vote. Mr. Roulette? Yes. Mr. Bach?
Yeah.
Ms. Clear?
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell?
Yes.
And I vote yes. We will adjourn to executive session. Thanks for your participation. I appreciate it. Have a good rest of the day.